Welcome to our explainer. Look, the world is on an absolute knife's edge today. We're going to break down exactly what's happening, why it all matters, and what you really need to be watching for next. Okay, let's just dive right in. We have to start with this incredibly stark warning. This is the very first public message from Iran's new supreme leader, and it is setting the stage for a massive escalation. And let's be clear, this isn't just rhetoric. This is a direct threat that has already sent shockwaves all around the globe. So, here's the global briefing we've put together for you. We're going to walk through the conflict, what we're calling the hot zone. Then we'll look at the resulting energy shockwave, see how the markets are reacting, they are definitely on edge, and finally, give you the outlook for what could come next. All right, first up, the hot zone. And believe me, the last 24 hours have been a whirlwind of military action. This thing is spreading way beyond its original borders. So, the biggest development by far has to be Israel's direct strike on Tehran. I mean, this is a huge turning point. We've gone from a shadow war to a direct, out-in-the-open conflict between two nations. And get this, it happened just hours after that first message from the new supreme leader was released. The timing is absolutely critical here. And at the same time, the fire is spreading. The conflict just got way more intense on another front. After a major rocket barrage from Hezbollah, we're seeing reports of heavy Israeli strikes in the suburbs of Beirut. This is dragging Lebanon deeper and deeper into this widening war. And this isn't just a military conflict. It's hitting the economic front, and it's hitting it hard. We're talking about critical shipping lanes, basically the arteries of global trade, and they are now under direct, consistent fire. This is already messing up supply chains and sending insurance costs through the roof. And just look at that number. 18. What's so important about this is that it shows this isn't random. 18 ships attacked. That's a systematic, sustained campaign. They are deliberately trying to choke off maritime traffic, specifically targeting the flow of energy and goods. And that threat to shipping? Well, that leads us straight into the first huge economic ripple effect: absolute chaos in the global energy market. And here it is, the big one, $100. We have just crossed a massive psychological and economic line in the sand. Brent crude oil closing at $100 a barrel. That's a direct result of the escalating risk that's now baked into every single drop of oil coming out of the Middle East. So why is that number so high? Well, to understand that, you have to look right here at this critical choke point. Iran's new supreme leader has been crystal clear. He's saying the Strait of Hormuz will stay closed, and he's using it as a weapon to pressure his enemies. So what you have right now is this giant tug of war playing out in the markets. On one side, you've got Iran's threats and these attacks pushing prices way up. But on the other side, you have the G7 nations, the IEA, and the US Navy all trying to pull things back down, promising to release emergency oil reserves and provide security escorts. The results? The volatility is just off the charts. Now, as you can probably guess, that kind of volatility in the energy sector sent an immediate shockwave right through the rest of the financial markets. And this is the number that greeted investors this morning. Down 600 points. That is a clear, gut punch reaction. It's pure fear about the potential economic fallout if this conflict gets wider and drags on. We're seeing a classic flight to safety, basically a vote of no confidence in any kind of short-term stability. And you can see here the pain was spread around. This wasn't just one sector getting hit. The whole market is reacting. What this tells us is that investors are deeply worried about inflation coming back because of these high energy prices, and of course, the big one, the risk of a global slowdown if this whole thing keeps going. Okay, and this right here gets to a really crucial long-term risk that I think a lot of people are missing. For years, right, the story of the Middle East was all about exporting oil. But now it exports capital. The sovereign wealth funds from that region are some of the biggest investors on the planet. So this war, it doesn't just threaten the oil supply, it threatens to turn off this massive spigot of global investment. And that is what's spooking capital markets everywhere. Okay, so that's the lay of the land right now. That brings us to our final section, and maybe the most important one. What are the absolute critical risks you need to be watching over the next 24 to 48 hours? All right, it really boils down to these three flashpoints. First, the Strait of Hormuz. Any more attacks there, or any move by Iran to enforce a full closure, is a huge red line. Second, military retaliation. Notice I said how, not if. How is Iran going to respond to those strikes on its capital? The scale of that response is critical. And third, the oil reserve decision. If the IEA or the G7 make a formal announcement, that could swing prices dramatically. The bottom line here is that everything is incredibly fluid. Any one of these things could trigger the next major escalation. And really, that leaves us with the billion-dollar question that every world leader is facing today. With every strike and every counterstrike, all the possible off-ramps, all the pathways to de-escalate this thing, they just seem to be getting narrower and narrower. And that leaves the rest of the world to just watch and wait.